Hey Yankees fans, welcome to Yankees Rumors and News, your go-to spot for the latest buzz and updates about our team. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a scoop. If you have been following the New York Yankees closely, you can almost feel the tension in the air around the name Jasson Dominguez. Because this story is no longer just about a young outfielder trying to find his footing. It is about expectations, patience, and the kind of organizational decisions that can haunt a franchise. For years, once introduced to the baseball world as the Martian, a nickname that promised something alien, explosive, and generational, Dominguez arrived carrying the weight of highlight videos, lofty comparisons, and the kind of hype that only the Yankees can truly generate. That hype exploded even more when he took a future Hall of Fame pitcher deep in his very first major league at-bat. A moment that felt like the opening scene of a legend being written, but baseball, as it so often does, refused to follow the script, and injuries quickly derailed what was supposed to be a smooth ascent into stardom, forcing Dominguez into a frustrating cycle of rehab, limited action, and questions about whether the Yankees rushed the dream before the foundation was ready. As the seasons unfolded, the shine around Dominguez began to fade, not because the talent disappeared, but because the results failed to scream inevitability. His offensive line last season told a story of a player still searching for consistency, with respectable on-base skills and flashes of power, yet nothing that made pitchers lose sleep before a series. 10 home runs across a full year of opportunities felt underwhelming for someone once marketed as a franchise-changing bat, and his struggles against left-handed pitching became a recurring talking point among analysts and fans alike. Every at-bat against the southpaw seemed to add another layer of doubt, another whisper that maybe the league had already adjusted. In a lineup already leaning heavily toward left-handed hitters, those struggles stood out even more, making Dominguez feel less like a solution and more like a puzzle the Yankees had not yet solved. Defense, however, became the quiet but loud problem that truly reshaped his role. Speed has never been the issue, as Dominguez can fly on the base paths and turn singles into doubles with ease. But instincts and reads in left field betrayed him far too often. Advanced metrics painted an unflattering picture, showing a player costing his team outs rather than saving them. And that reality mattered most when the calendar flipped to October, when the game slowed down and every mistake carried extra weight. Dominguez found himself watching more than playing, reduced to a single postseason appearance as a pinch hitter. For a former top prospect, that is a brutal message, and it sent a signal to the baseball world that the Yankees were no longer sure how he fit into their immediate plans. That uncertainty fueled trade rumors, and once those rumors catch fire in New York, they rarely cool off quietly. Reports that the Yankees are exploring the market for a right-handed outfielder only added gasoline to the situation, because it suggests a front office looking for balance and reliability, rather than patience and projection, with another highly touted left-handed prospect waiting in the wings and roster spots at a premium. Dominguez suddenly feels expendable in a way that would have been unthinkable not long ago. The idea that his role in the Bronx is shrinking is not driven by one bad month or one bad series, but by a slow accumulation of doubts, alternatives, and the pressure to win now that defines the Yankees' identity. And yet, this is exactly where history urges caution, because trading Jasson Dominguez now carries the unmistakable scent of regret waiting to happen. The Yankees have not always been masters at developing their own stars, and that uncomfortable truth should loom large over any discussion about giving up on a player this young. Dominguez is barely into his early 20s, with a sample size that barely scratches the surface of what a full major league career looks like. More than 500 plate appearances can feel like a lot when every swing is dissected on social media, but in baseball terms it is a blink, especially for a player who lost crucial development time to injuries. Selling now would almost certainly mean selling low, and that is rarely how smart organizations operate, even ones under constant pressure to contend. The alternatives do little to inspire confidence either, because the names floated as potential replacements carry their own red flags. These are players closer to the back end of their careers, players whose ceilings are well-defined and whose best days are likely behind them rather than ahead. Swapping a young, toolsy outfielder for short-term stability might soothe immediate concerns, but it risks repeating a familiar Yankees mistake, prioritizing the present so aggressively that the future is quietly sacrificed. What makes this even more complicated is that the underlying data still believes in Dominguez. His bat speed ranks well above average, and his ability to hit the ball hard suggests that the raw ingredients for offensive growth are still very much intact. Those are traits that cannot be taught, only refined. And refinement takes time. If Dominguez can improve his contact rate and find a more consistent launch angle, the production could catch up quickly, transforming last season's modest numbers into something far more intimidating. Power in baseball often arrives in waves, especially for young hitters learning which pitches they can drive and which they must simply survive. The Yankees, for all their impatience, could be rewarded handsomely if they choose development over desperation here, letting Dominguez grow into his body, his approach, and his defensive responsibilities might not produce immediate fireworks, but it could still unlock the player they once believed was special enough to earn that otherworldly nickname. While the Dominguez debate swirls, another storyline is quietly developing beneath the surface, one that could shape the Yankees' future just as profoundly, and that is their emerging pitching depth. The organization understands better than anyone that sustained success is built on arms, not just bats, and the coming season represents a proving ground for a trio of young pitchers who could soon force their way into the broader conversation. These are not household names yet, but within the system, they are viewed as potential building blocks, pitchers whose growth could stabilize rotations and bullpens for years to come. If everything breaks right, one of these arms is a right-hander whose professional journey has already tested his resilience, limited by injuries early on. He still managed to flash a changeup that plays beautifully off a rising fastball, giving hitters to very different looks from the same release point. Control remains the hurdle, as free passes have inflated pitch counts and cut outings short. But the strikeout ability hints at something more. When healthy, he misses bats at a rate that commands attention. And with improved command, he could evolve from a question mark into a genuine asset. Development, once again, is the key word, because pitchers often take longer to harness their tools than fans would like. Another pitcher in this group stands out for sheer power, a fireballer whose fastball can overwhelm hitters and set the tone of an entire game. His delivery creates uncomfortable angles, and paired with multiple breaking balls, it gives him the ability to attack hitters in different ways depending on the situation. Scouts are drawn to that kind of versatility because it suggests a pitcher who can adjust rather than rely on one trick. While he may currently sit atop this trio in terms of readiness, the challenge will be refining that raw velocity into consistent dominance, turning potential into production against more advanced competition. Then there is the towering young arm, whose physical presence alone captures attention, standing well above most of his peers. He offers a steep downhill plane that makes his fastball particularly difficult to square up. Injury slowed his progress, but the promise of 3+ pitches remains tantalizing. A fastball capable of reaching the upper 90s, combined with secondary offerings that continue to develop, gives him a ceiling that might ultimately surpass the others if everything clicks. For the Yankees, even one of these pitchers becoming a reliable major league contributor would represent a significant win. A reminder that patience and internal development can still pay off in a market obsessed with instant results. When you zoom out and connect these storylines, the picture becomes clear. The Yankees are standing at a familiar crossroads, torn between urgency and restraint, between the temptation to reshuffle the deck and the discipline to let young talent breathe. Jasson Dominguez embodies that tension perfectly, a player who has not yet delivered on the hype, but has also not come close to exhausting his potential. Pair that with a wave of young pitching still finding its way, and the message is obvious. The decisions made now in this moment of uncertainty will echo far beyond the next season, shaping not only the roster, but the identity of the franchise itself. If you're enjoying the updates, drop a like and let us know in the comments your thoughts on this rumor. The rumor making the rounds right now feels bigger than a normal hot stove whisper. It feels like one of those moments that can reshape an entire franchise, if even half of it turns out to be true. Because the talk is that Juan Soto is staring straight at the New York Yankees, and quietly but firmly saying $700 million or nothing. And the wild part is not just the size of that number, which already sounds like something pulled from a video game, but the alleged ultimatum attached to it. A tight window where HAL Steinbrenner would have roughly 24 hours to match a so-called secret offer if he truly wants Soto back in pinstripes. And when you hear something like that, you can almost picture the dramatic pause in a YouTube video, the lowered voice, the sense that something massive is happening behind closed doors that fans are not supposed to know about yet. The way this rumor is being framed is fascinating because it paints Juan Soto not as a desperate player looking for security, but as a superstar fully aware of his leverage, his age, his production, and his market power. Almost daring the Yankees to prove what they always say about themselves, that they are the biggest brand in baseball and that money will never be the obstacle. When a generational talent is on the table, and the alleged $700 million figure is not just about dollars, it is about respect, legacy, and the message it sends to every other star. Watching how the Yankees treat one of the most feared hitters on the planet. What really fuels the speculation is this idea of a secret offer floating out there. Some mystery team, or perhaps several teams quietly lining up with a contract so massive that even insiders hesitate to say it out loud, because once you say $700 million, you cross into a psychological barrier where contracts stop being compared to each other and start being compared to myths. And the rumor suggests that Soto's camp is not shopping this number around casually, but instead using it as a pressure point, almost a chess move, telling the Yankees that this is the price of doing business if they truly want him back, and that the clock is already ticking from a narrative standpoint. This is the kind of story that Yankees fans both love and fear, because on one hand it reinforces the idea that elite players still want to wear pinstripes, that Soto himself allegedly wants to return, wants to be the face of the franchise, wants to write his own chapter in the long history of the Bronx. But on the other hand, it forces the organization to stare at a commitment so massive that it would echo for decades, shaping payroll flexibility, roster construction, and even the identity of the team long after Soto's prime years are gone. The 24-hour element is what really turns this from a simple contract rumor into a dramatic standoff, because it suggests urgency, tension, and perhaps even a bit of brinkmanship, as if Soto's camp is saying, we are not going to wait forever. We are not going to let this drag into endless negotiations. This is the number, this is the moment, and if you hesitate, someone else will happily step in. And that kind of pressure can be intoxicating or terrifying depending on which side of the table you are sitting on. When people hear $700 million attached to one player, the immediate reaction is disbelief, but when you slow it down and look at Soto's age, his plate discipline, his power, his consistency, and his ability to change the dynamic of a lineup the instant he steps into the batter's box, the number starts to feel less like insanity and more like the logical extreme of a market that keeps pushing boundaries. And the Yankees have always been part of those boundary-pushing moments, whether they like to admit it publicly or not. Another layer to this rumor is the idea that Soto wants to be a Yankee specifically. That this is not just about chasing the biggest check possible, but about choosing the stage, the pressure, the history, and the daily spotlight that comes with playing in New York, and that is where the alleged ultimatum gains emotional weight, because it frames the decision as one final test of mutual desire. Soto saying, I want to be here, but I need you to meet me at this level, and the Yankees responding either with a resounding yes or a silence that speaks volumes. It is impossible to ignore the symbolism of Hal Steinbrenner being the focal point of this story, because every massive Yankees decision eventually circles back to him, and the rumor suggests that this is one of those moments where his philosophy, his willingness to spend, and his vision for the franchise are all being challenged at once. Not by the media or the fans, but by the player himself. And the idea of a 24-hour window implies that there may not be room for long internal debates or cautious hedging. Only a clear and decisive answer from the perspective of a YouTube narrator. This is the kind of rumor you savor, because it has all the elements: secrecy, an enormous number, a ticking clock, a superstar with leverage, and a legendary franchise at a crossroads. And even if nothing becomes official, the mere existence of this speculation tells you something important about where the market is heading and how players like Soto see their own value in a league that keeps rewriting its financial rules. The fans, of course, are left to read between the lines, imagining front office meetings late into the night, imagining phone calls that never leak, imagining spreadsheets and projections colliding with emotion and pride, and the thought that Soto himself might be waiting, calm and confident, knowing that every passing hour only amplifies the drama. Because whether the Yankees match that secret offer or walk away, the decision will be dissected endlessly as either a bold affirmation of their identity or a stunning admission of limits. What makes this rumor linger is not just the shock of $700 million, but the simplicity of the message attached to it. That there is a line in the sand, that the window is narrow, and that the outcome will be clear sooner rather than later. and in a sport where negotiations often drag on quietly for ages. That kind of clarity feels almost rebellious, almost cinematic. Like a superstar grabbing the narrative and forcing everyone else to react on his terms. In the end, whether this ultimatum is as real and firm as it sounds or simply a strategic leak designed to stir the waters, it has already accomplished something powerful. It has reignited the conversation about what Juan Soto means to the Yankees, about how far the organization is willing to go to secure a generational bat, and about whether $700 million is truly too much for a player who could define an era. And until there is an answer, the rumor will continue to grow, whispered and debated, fueling videos, discussions, and imaginations, because in baseball, sometimes the speculation is almost as captivating as the game itself. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you stay up to date with every Yankees rumor and news. See you in the next video.